We just finished up a little bit of a build on this D-Max here. We don't typically do walkthroughs on D-Maxes. It's usually obviously on the Land Cruisers and that, but yeah, we've done a bit of a fit out on it. Nothing too crazy, but we thought we'd just run through and just show you what we've done on this one just to mix it up a little bit. So let's jump into it and check it out. Yeah, so jumping just in the engine bay. We haven't done a huge amount in here. There was already quite a lot of work that was already previously done. And typically what happens, like at least what we find anyway, is when people start adding stuff onto it, you usually add like one component, then you add another one, then add another one, add another one. And then what ends up happening is you end up just getting a bit of a mess inside the actual engine bay, just because obviously people just keep adding on. So we're just kind of just cleaned it up a little bit. We've just chucked these MIDI fuses on, so just to try to make it a little bit nicer. And then we've just gone ahead and labeled everything as well, so you know straight away what everything is. That's the other issue we normally find with a lot of these things is when people add them on, obviously they're only adding one component on, so then straight away you know, oh yeah, well this fuse is for this because it's only the one, and the next thing the next person does and the next person does, and then all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 fuses in here, nothing's labeled, and you don't know what's actually what. So what we always do is we usually always will label everything, and then that way if you ever add stuff on in the future, or if you're just trying to troubleshoot, you know straight away what the problem is, instead of having to look at each individual fuse to see if one of these are blown or not for the component that's not working. So that's just something that we normally do. So we've just gone ahead and just cleaned that up, chuck the middies in. They are better than blade fuses, just because they can handle a lot more current. Blade fuses, we don't typically recommend anything over 25 amps to go to a blade. Middies a bit better, they can handle the current a bit better. So that's why we typically will always try to go for middies, and then we always try to mount them in an actual location. A lot of the time you just see one MIDI over here, one over there, and it just makes it a bit harder to find where they're actually located. So if they're either on the battery or around that area, all in the one location, just makes it super simple to be able to find exactly where they're at. And then there was just a couple relays that were just kind of floating around, so we've just gone ahead and just mounted them up there, so then that way they're nice and secure, and then yeah, you're not going to have to worry about trying to find where all my relays are. They're just in that one location. But yeah, that's pretty much everything we've done in the engine bay, just a bit of a clean up. So we'll jump around to the side and check out what we've done there. Yeah, so just around the side here, so they had a light bar that was pre-existing on the roof rack, and then they pretty much just ran the cable up the windscreen. They pretty much just duct taped it to the top there. It didn't really look the nicest. So what we've done, we've just relocated how that's actually run. So instead of coming up the side here and being super visible from the front, we're just going ahead and just run it down the back, and then in that way it comes up the back of the roof rack. And we'll just put a plug on the back of it. That way it just makes it easy that if you ever wanted to disconnect your roof rack for whatever reason, you just unplug it and straight off it comes. And then the other advantage to it is a lot of time we'll usually run a few spares up there as well. And then that way, if you ever wanted to add on to the future, you've got a couple of spares there available and all the hard work's already done. And then just one addition we've made to the roof rack is we just put these little rock lights, light force on each side. They're just the Rock 9s. They didn't really have any work lights, and then there was no lights in like the awning and that, so just to be able to get a bit of camp light, we just chucked a little light on this side and the other side. They're both just switched on together. They're only little lights, so they don't draw a huge amount, so they're just on the one switch inside the dash, and then that way when you're setting up at camp, you can just turn those lights on and you can see a little bit. And then you might just notice how we've actually run the cables up. So what we typically try to do is just have one harness that goes in the location instead of multiple harnesses. It just makes it look a little bit cleaner. So typically the way we'll do that is we try to put it in solid sleeving, well, solid conduit as much as possible. That way it's just a lot more protective than say split conduit or some sleeving. So we usually try to run that most of the way. And then when we try to branch off from there, we either gonna just depends on the situation. If it needs a bit more protection, we'll go to conduit. But if it's a situation like this where it's not really going to rub on much, all the surfaces are pretty like they're not very harsh, so we don't have to worry about using conduit. So we just switch to this sleeving here. What the benefit to it is it's not as bulky, so when you are trying to branch off to multiple ones, it's a lot easier to get them condensed into one little location instead of making it quite big, and then it just looks pretty sleek. So it just blends in with the rest of the roof rack, and then it just reduces a little bit of that size, and it just allows you just to be able to go from one big conduit into multiple little branches. Just streamlines it a little bit and makes it look pretty nice. But that's pretty much everything around the side here, so we'll jump into the back and check out what we've done there. Yeah, so jumping in the back, we haven't done a huge amount back here. They already had some pre-existing drawers and then a drawer fridge, but it was the same deal as the engine bay and the roof. It was kind of just a little bit messy, the wiring, so we've cleaned it all up. And then we've just added a Victron 500 VA inverter, and then we've just set it to the eco mode, which is just port number 2 on the switch. And what that basically does is it just senses whenever you plug power into it and you try to pull power from it, it will turn itself on, and then when it senses you're not pulling anything off it, it'll turn itself off. So it saves quite a lot of power when it's in that compared to standby mode. So that's why we've just set it to that, and then we just plugged the power board into it and just put it on the back of the drawer fridge there. That way they've just got a little bit of power just to be able to charge a few phones and then drones and so on. So that's why it's only a little small inverter. And then that's just wired to the behind the seat battery, which we'll get into once we jump into there. And then we've pretty much just changed a few fittings on the actual pre-existing compressor they already had there, just so that we could plumb in just for the horns, because the horns weren't working previously that they had mounted on the roof there. So that's now all plumbed into that compressor, and then they're able to use it to inflate all their tires and that. So we've just chucked a little 3D printed a little socket on the end here that just houses their switch for their pre-existing lights in the back of the tray here. And then it's just got a dual USB and a SIG socket along with the ARB outlet there, so that's just plumbed to that compressor, so they can get air to be able to pump everything up, and then just a few outlets there. And that's, yeah, we just 3D printed that just to suit that little location there, and then just put it on a little bit of an angle so it's nice and easy to access. So that came out pretty nice. It's a big benefit of having 3D printers these days. You can pretty much make whatever you want really and then suit the situation, so that came out pretty nice. But that's pretty much everything we've done in the back here, nothing too crazy. So we'll jump inside and then check out what we've done in there. So jumping into the car, we're just at the front here. So what we've done in the dash here, we just put the work lights just for those 2 roof mounted work lights on there, and then we'll just put the air compressor switch in there as well. And then just inside the dash here, we'll just put the RJ45 pass-through for the UHF that was already pre-existing, but they just had the pass-through like underneath the dash, so we've just relocated that to this spot here. So in the center of the dashes, if you're not aware, on D-Maxes, they've only got that one spare spot there. So on my car, I've gone ahead and put my comm switch there because I've got my RJ45 up in the roof, but that's really probably the best spot for the D-Maxes to put it. Otherwise, the only other place is over here on the driver's side. Then it makes it extremely hard for the passenger to be able to access it. So if you don't have an overhead roof console, I definitely think that's the best place on the D-Maxes, and the BT50s I believe are the same, to put your RJ45 pass-through there. Just makes it easy to be able to use it on both sides. So that's why we've gone ahead and chucked that one there. And then we've just got our work light switches over here. Downside to the newer model D-Maxes compared to mine is they come with a lot more extra switches on the right hand side here, so it does start becoming difficult. But the benefit to it is you can put the dual switches like I've done on mine, so then you can basically double up all your switches. And there are kind of a couple switches there that, at least on mine personally, I've decided to get rid of just because I don't really need them. And I just unplugged them because I'm never going to use it. Like the illumination, being able to change the brightness of it, kind of pointless in my opinion. So the big benefit to the D-Maxes is, yeah, they do have quite a lot of places to be able to put all these extra switches without having to go to stuff like the Garmin Power Switch or the Switch Pros and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely a great place to be able to put that there. So that's pretty much everything we've done inside there. So we'll jump behind the seat and check out what we've done there. Yeah, so just jumping into the back, we'll just put our behind the seat kit into here. So this one's slightly different to what you might have seen previously. We used to have the Amtron battery in there, but Amtron have recently switched from the ABS casing to the aluminium casing, made it slightly wider, which resulted in the rear seat basically need to be getting slammed to be able to close it, which we're not really a big fan of. So we just opted to go for the 100 amp custom lithium now. That's really the main reason why we go for 100 instead of the 200. If you go for a 200, same problems you're going to face, where you're going to have to slam the rear seat. I mean, some people might not mind, but for us, we don't really feel that that's a good alternative. And then the other issue is if you went for a 200, it takes up quite a lot of the space, which we don't really want to do because we want to be able to put these extra fuses in there. And then that way it just makes it easy. If you wanted to add an inverter like on this one, you can just come straight to here to plug into it. If this was all battery, you would struggle to find a place to put a fuse box. Just makes it quite difficult to add stuff on into the future. Hence why we don't go for it. And to be honest, typically most people don't actually need a 200 amp hour battery. Most people pretty much run a few lights fridge, maybe 2 fridges. 100 lithium will do that easily, especially if you have solar like this one does, or a blanket. You don't really need much more than 100 amp lithium battery. I've for years had an AGM that was only 65 amp hour doing the same thing, and I never went flat on that. And obviously 100's bigger, and then lithium's even better again. So most people, they only really need the 100. So that's why we go for this. We don't really see it as a downside. Well, ideally, if you can fit a 200 in, it would be better, but you can't really fit them on the D-Maxes without slamming the seat, so that's why we've opted for that. And then, yeah, we've just got our main fuse box there, which is all your main power. So got your DC-DC, then for your fuse box over there is another fuse for this one here. And then you've got a couple spares if you want to put like a compressor, inverter in the back, you can chuck that straight to there. And then you've got your BCDC there, they've just gone for the Core 25. And then located next to that is just your main fuse box, which you'll put all your blade fuses into. You can see we've added a few there, but then he's got quite a lot of spares. And then the benefit to these ones is it's got the negatives on the bottom, so you just run your negative cable straight to the bottom and then chuck your power to the other side, and then you're good to go. And then you've just got your couple Andersons there. Red ones for your solar, so if you had a blanket or fixed solar, plug straight into that. And then the top one is just a 3-way Anderson, and the reason it's a 3-way, being a D-Max, does have a smart alternator on it, so you do need to ignition trigger the BCDC. That's going to be most cars these days. Even Toyota now is starting to go towards that with the Prado 250, needs to be ignition triggered. So it's kind of becoming the standard practice now. So that's why it's the 3-way there for positive, negative, and just the ignition trigger. And then we've just got the Victron 500 amp smart shunter just down the bottom there, and then that will obviously give you all your monitoring through the Bluetooth app. It's just the Victron Connect app. The main reason we go for the Victron one over the Red Arc is really a price point. That's why we'll typically go, if you have a Core BCDC, we'll go the Victron Smart Shunt. If you had an Alpha, because that's got an app on it, we then would typically go for the Red Arc one, even though it is more expensive, just so that way you've only got one app instead of the 2. But normally you just go for the Core, or you go to the Orion, and then we'll just go for the Victron. Just allows all your monitoring through the one app. So that's pretty much everything we've done to this D-Max. Yeah, so that's everything for this D-Max. It's not our typical walkthrough. We usually do quite a lot of big builds, and we usually do them for our walkthroughs, but we don't really get too many big builds for the D-Maxes and that, and we obviously haven't really showcased too much that we do other things apart from obviously Land Cruisers. So that's a big thing of why we wanted to get it on. And I personally have a bit of a soft spot for D-Maxes, as I do own one myself. So I was pretty keen to get one onto the channel. Obviously mine's been on a few times now, but we haven't really done a walkthrough for it. So that's why we really want to do a walkthrough on this one and check it out. I personally think they're probably one of the better dual cabs, if not the best dual cab on the market. But obviously I'm a little bit biased, but that is what it is. So that's pretty much everything now. So if you're interested, would like any more information, you just click the link below and you take you to our website and you can get in contact with us there.